Welcome everyone. My name is Kim Brown and I am with the Rural Institute Transition and Employment Projects, and I will be your moderator for today. Today's webinar is sponsored by the University of Montana Rural Institute Transition and Employment Projects. All attendees are currently muted. If you want to ask the presenter a question, and she will call for questions toward the end of the video that she'll be showing today, you can type your question into the chat box on your screen, and we will read the questions to our presenter and she can answer them. There is also a way for you to raise your hand to ask a question over the phone or over your computer's microphone, but we found that that does not work as well, so it is better if you can type your question into the chat box on your screen. For those of you who requested Montana Office of Public Instruction renewal units when you registered, we will email those to you after today's webinar, and that can take up to a couple of weeks for us to get the emailed verification out. Please note that you do have to have pre-registered in order to receive the OPI credit, and we are unable to issue other kinds of attendance documentation. Today's session is being audio taped for the Rural Institute Transition and Employment Projects Resource Library and for the Pluck Rural Institute Online Transition Toolbox. And I will put the website URLs or the website addresses for both of those in the chat box in just a bit. When you log out of today's webinar session, a short survey will pop up, and we ask that you please take the time to answer those questions. There are only 9 or 10 of them, I think, and they're pretty short, but we really want to hear from you how today's session worked for you, and if you have other transition-related topics that you would like to see addressed in the future. So please take the couple of minutes to fill out that survey when it pops up as you leave today's session. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's speaker and thank her for her willingness to join us and share information with us. We are very, very lucky to have Jeanne Stone with Montana Vocational Rehabilitation, and Jeanne is also a member of the Rural Institute Consumer Advisory Council. Jeanne, take it away.
Good afternoon. I am a voc rehab counselor. I have also had the privilege of helping my daughter transition from high school into the working world with the help of voc rehab. So I kind of have a little bit of experience on both sides. The video I'm going to show you is a video that was developed targeting high school students in showing them what the possibilities are and what voc rehab can do. It's about a little over 15 minutes long. After the video is done, then I will take questions and hopefully have some answers for you.
The following film was brought to you by the Montana Vocational Rehabilitation Program, a partner of MontanaYouthTransitions.org, and was funded by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.
What's up? My name is Luca. I'm coming to you on behalf of the Montana Vocational Rehabilitation Program.
My name is Luca Bitwali. I also go as B-Boy Lazy Legs. B-Boy stands for Break Boy. I'm a professional break dancer.
It'd be hard to find anyone with higher spirits than our final competitor.
My name is Luca Bitwali, aka Lazy Legs. I was born with a physical condition called arthrogryposis. So what that means is I have very little muscles in my legs. Don't look at my crutches as a crutch. Look at it as a new style of dancing shoe. This disability I may have has never stopped me from doing anything I ever wanted. And I'm motivated to become one of the best in the world. So I want you guys to know that I worked extremely hard to get to where I'm at today. But it doesn't mean that I didn't get help along the way. And speaking of help, I want to talk to you guys about folk rehab. graduating from high school may be a stressful, but it's an exciting time in your life. You might be asking yourself a lot of questions. What kind of work will I do? Who's going to hire me? How am I going to pay for college? Is there someone out there that's willing to help me? You may have heard about so many opportunities out there from so many different people, but you just don't know which option is right for you. There's so many choices out there that it can get really confusing. But don't worry, Voc Rehab is here to help you.
Over the years, I've been asked if I've been bitten by a shark, if I've been in a car accident, or if I'm an Iraqi war veteran, all for one reason. See, I was born without legs, and while it's given me the added challenge of trying to figure out what to do with my life and career, and more importantly, how to do it, I think through a mix of luck, fortune, and a little bit of focus, I've gotten there. Hopefully, through this interview and this video, you'll be able to do the same. I learned about vocational rehabilitation through my high school's counselor. They were one of the early ones advising me not only just how to get scholarships and stuff like that outside of Voc Rehab, but also who to contact and how to get that program started. I was at first not really sure what Voc Rehab was about, and I think part of that was because as it was quickly explained to me, it's a really wide and expansive program. The level of service they offer can go everywhere from very close counseling and monitoring and helping payment for all of your schools, but also just kind of trying to guide you towards an occupation once you get out of school. That was the most valuable thing Voc Rehab offered me. I'm an ex-game skier, former World Cup racer. I am a photographer, but have shot in over 28 countries. I've had work displayed in England, Mexico, the Smithsonian, over in D.C. I'm a traveler. I'm an adventurer. Whether I'm writing a book or taking photos or doing any number of other things, I'm usually on some sort of harebrained scheme or adventure in the process.
I have a physical disability of quadriplegia from a spinal cord injury that happened in a car accident when I was 18. The spinal cord injury that I had left me with paralysis from my shoulders down and no sensation. There was some concern, I would say, and maybe some fear and uncertainty. Obviously, a lot of questions I had were about employment, and so someone talked to me about vocational rehabilitation, and so I met with them and realized that they could be a resource to me and help me pursue some of the job goals that I had. I am a program coordinator here at Montech, which it helps all Montanans achieve technology, and then the other half of my job is the Montana's Access to Outdoor Recreation Program, which is a purely wildlife associated recreation program for Montanans with disabilities. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt all kinds of animals. When I tell people that, they are often pretty surprised and can't quite imagine exactly how that physically can be.
Vocational rehabilitation is about helping young people who live with disabilities transition from school into the world of work. It's all about finding what you enjoy, your interests, the things you enjoy most, followed by your abilities, those things that you do well. And we bring those two things together in a job goal. When we do that, we have some magic.
My name is Jesse Jensen. I have Tourette syndrome. Well, disabilities is a natural thing, so I think everybody's special in their own way. Yeah, there was a time, seriously, when we were pretty unsure. We didn't think Jesse had a very strong chance of finishing high school. The possibility of him driving a car seemed pretty incredible, and even having a job.
I think the amazing thing about vocational rehab is that they're so doggedly determined to help a person succeed. We came in contact when Jesse was in high school.
The more you're available, the more they're going to hire you.
Yeah. So it was just amazing, just the patience with the process. But then it was like, wow, this is exactly what he needs. This is the bridge that he's going to need to cross over into being able to work.
It helped me overcome so many things in my life, so many steps I've taken.
Well, you know, when you watch TV and when you read books and when you do things in your life, like, there's very few people with disabilities that are portrayed, and if they're portrayed, they're not necessarily portrayed in a positive light. And so I think it's important that the media kind of get away from this perfect 2020 world. I was born with Leber's congenital amaurosis, or LCA, which is like a malfunction with the rods and cones in my retinas, so I've been blind since birth. For Montech, I'm one of the blind specialists, and I study, test, and write about a lot of the different blindness equipment we have here. I don't consider myself like at a disadvantage really from other people. I don't just sit around and wallow in misery. I do speech and debate, I do theater, I do creative writing and like National Honor Society. I don't know, I would like people with disabilities to be recognized.
There's always a first impression when you meet someone, but if you take the time to get to know them or to really understand them, you get to peel off the layers and go deeper and deeper and see who that person really is. My name is Tess Langston, and I have classical autism. At an early age, I always knew what I wanted to do in life. My goal is to be an animator. I want to create stories that can impact old and young. I want to tell stories that can be timeless. A common myth about people with neurological disabilities or autism is that they can't go through life as a normal person. They have to stay with their parents or they can't live on their own, which is fairly untrue.
There's also a myth that, disabled people can't get into college. And that's, to me, after all of my past experiences, that's not even what I consider to be a myth anymore. I think that's more of a joke. I think through a mix of technology as well as an ever-widening number of career options out there, that really, if you have the interest and the want to go research and find a position for yourself, you can do so. I went to Montana State University, and I know that just personally speaking, I was helped in every single step of the way, whether that was through financial aid, personal guidance, or even just someone showing you around campus to find the ramps and elevators. It's just, I think in a lot of ways you have almost a bigger advantage than your able-bodied peers going into college sometimes.
When I first met with a VR counselor, we sat down and talked about what some of my goals were, what some of my strengths were, most importantly, what some of my interests were. And yeah, I'm very satisfied with my job. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the people. It's rewarding to see people fulfill their potential.
I think it takes a village to raise a child. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. To successfully help an individual grow in the ways that they need to grow, and I believe that vocational rehab is a very important part of the village.
I think the biggest difference between the day I started Voc Rehab and the day I got out is confidence. Yes, Voc Rehab provided resources to help me go through college, but at the end of the day, the most important thing for me was having, a guide into the world of trying to get a job once you're out of school.
Once you have chosen your job, Voc Rehab provides you with the services you need in order to prepare for, get, and keep that job. Some of you may need assistance completing a job application or even getting ready for an interview, and others may require therapy to help overcome barriers that may get in the way. Whatever it is that you need to get the job that is best for you, VR is here to help. And best of all, it's free of charge for those who are eligible.
Jobs can range from high-level executive jobs to jobs related to disability or jobs related that don't have anything to do with disability at all. They could be outdoors on a daily basis. Voc Rehab meets an individual where his or her interests and potential lie.
It sounds very simple, but in terms of where we are in history, as a person or individual with a disability, you could not have found yourself living in a better period of time. Every now and then I enjoy playing video games and sitting at home and being a hermit, but I can guarantee you that nothing happens during that time. Sometimes that's a relaxing thing, but nothing happens. And so with that knowledge, not take advantage of that would be a tremendous waste that you don't really have that many excuses.
So I think as a professional performer, I can tell you that I'm living my dream. This is what I've wanted. This is what I've worked for my whole life. And as you can see on my t-shirt, it says plain and simple, no excuses, no limits. I've been dancing and I've been skateboarding and I've been doing it differently than anyone else in this world. But I've been doing it my own way. Just try. And remember that there are no excuses, no limits.
Disability is a natural part of life. So whether you were born with a disability or you come to have a disability because of an accident, disease, or age, all of us are going to learn what it's like to live with a disability. So it's not about them, it's about us. We discovered that we have far more in common than we have differences.
With 54 million people in the United States with a disability, this is a massive, massive contingent of people. And I guess if there's one thing that you can certainly take comfort in, is that you are most definitely not alone.
So don't be shy.
Here's what I know, live life and grow. Forget how you used to be. Look deep inside and you will find I've grown, I've changed, and now I am ready to say, give it to me, eternity. I've earned the right to say I know. Been through the pain, lived through the rain, giving my all to say I know. Ever wonder what people would do if they knew the secrets in you and where you've been and how you've lived your life? Shall we move on? It's so funny how the world goes around.
This film was brought to you by the Montana Vocational Rehabilitation Program, a partner of MontanaYouthTransitions.org, and was funded by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.
One thing that I would like to mention is the Voc Rehab recently had a review by the federal government, and they noted that this video is one of the few in the nation that was geared towards the high school students. A lot of the states, when they do videos like this, they are gearing it more towards the parents. But we hoped by gearing it towards high school students that we could get them to realize that they are the drivers of their own life, their own cab, so to speak. And there's a lot of people on their teams that will work and can help to get them there, but they are the person that's in the driver's seat, so to speak. So at this time, I'd like to ask, is there any questions?
Great. Thanks, Jeannie. This is Kim, and we do have a couple questions that have come in already. And I'm just going to go ahead and post quickly in the chat box for everyone to see the two websites where the archive of today's session will be posted, and it can take up to 2 weeks for us to get those posted. The first address you should see is the Rural Institute Transition and Employment Projects website. And then the second is the Pluck Rural Institute Online Transition Toolbox site. So those are both where you can access the recording. Again, it can take up to 2 weeks to be put on there. The first question that came in, Jeannie, was asking, is there a link to this video for people who would like to access it back in their home offices?
There is a link on YouTube, and what I can do is send that to Kim, and if we can get it sent out that way. I do have to say, though, that the color is not very good and the sound doesn't necessarily match the way the mouths are moving. If you would like a copy of the disc, I'm sure if you contacted Barb Schiedemeyer that she might be able to get you a copy of the disc. We did get several extra maids. The one thing is, each school in the state eventually will have this disc, and will be able to use it in their classroom, as well as the Voc Rehab offices each have a disc, and there's several counselors that partner with schools that have the disc as well.
Great, thank you. And if you are in a hurry to access this on YouTube, before I'm able to get the link out to you, you can just go on to YouTube and you can put in a search for Montana Vocational Rehabilitation Transition, and the video will come up that way as well. I just double checked that, and it did come up for me. So thanks. Okay, next question. Hi, I'm looking for specifics on how Voc Rehab figures out one's interests and abilities. What kind of intake and or testing happens? How are job matches made? What kind of follow-up is there? How long is DVR involved with the person? Thanks.
There's several evaluations that can be used to see what a person's interests and limitations and strengths are. One thing that we use here in Missoula, as we're lucky to have this testing facility here, is what we call a vocational evaluation. And it's roughly about 3 days of testing that uses a variety, pencil and paper, hands-on, computer, listening, various tests that look at that help identify a person's strengths, limitations, and capabilities. And from that test, it can identify the best way a person can learn to help determine if a person would be a good candidate to go to college or not. It can also look at areas of possible interest and identify a few job goals that a person could then look at. There's a job service website, as well as we go to the Montana Career Information System Network, and it can explain a little bit more about the different jobs that have been identified. There's some pencil and paper tests that some offices use as well. As far as how long Voc Rehab works with a client, it can go anywhere from a couple of months to maybe several years, depending on what is identified as a job goal and how we're going to get to that job goal. With the job goal, sometimes it could be just doing some job search if they already have some existing skills that will work into their job goal. It may involve some training, and the training can be anywhere from accessing some adult education courses. It could be doing a 2-year degree at a community college or a college of technology, and it could possibly be a 4-year degree. And once a person receives training, they're not necessarily done with Voc Rehab, as we can also assist with looking for employment after they receive their training.
Okay. And then we have a couple folks. Okay, great. We have a couple of folks who have written in with the YouTube link, and so I'll go ahead and copy and paste that onto the chat box for you in just a sec here. Other questions that folks might have?
Hey, Jeannie, this is Ellen with a question. I'm wondering if you can describe for us how the process of identifying somebody's interests and support needs might look differently for somebody who's not going to benefit from more of the paper pencil testing?
Sometimes what we can do is, they call it a work assessment, and with that, what can happen is a person can say, well, I think I might be interested in working in an office. And what they will what the job developer will do, so Voc Rehab will contract with the job developer and they will set up a work assessment. And that work assessment generally is done, in the area that they've expressed interest in, and it's for like about 40 hours, and the person kind of gets to try out the job, so to speak. And in exchange, the employer will note down, did the person learn best by being shown what to do? Were they able to look and figure it out on their own? How much direction did they need? How much supervision did they need? And that can help us identify sometimes, is the person able to work in the world with a lot of supports, with a little supports, with no supports. With the vocational testing, sometimes when the evaluator that we have used, she will note if the person is not able to do some paper and pencil stuff, and she will modify the testing to the level that the person needs. There's other times where we rely heavily on the records from the school and what they have done with the person, not only in the academic setting, but maybe some accommodations that they have made just in school in general.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next question is expressing some frustration about follow-through from students and or families where the students have qualified for services after they've graduated, but then they don't necessarily follow through because when they were in school there was a special education case manager who was kind of leading things and moving things forward, and once the student has graduated that maybe isn't happening anymore. Any suggestions for dealing with lack of follow-through?
One thing with Voc Rehab, when a student applies for Voc Rehab, it is assumed that they're wanting to look for work. And one of the things is for them to, so to speak, follow through on their own, because it's showing their willingness to work and their ability to work. I think one thing, like what I did with my daughter, she has autism, is I did a reminder board for her, and after the first meeting then she would write appointments down to know when she had to meet again. I think it's very important to figure out what works for the student, and then it's also very important too for the parents to try to remain as involved as they possibly can to put the reminders in place for the student. I think it's the student really needs to be able to advocate, and that is one of the things that they need to come out of high school with, is the ability to advocate for themselves, which is also remembering to come to appointments.
Okay, great, thank you. Next is a comment. That was a great video for transitional youth. Maybe you can present at the NCRE conference. It's a great model for other state VR agencies. And then a question. Do you work with high school transition programs that are designed for people with developmental disabilities, and what does that look like?
I actually am very new into the transition part of it, and I do have some students with developmental disabilities. And what's hard is it really seems like it's the success of the student depends on how involved the special ed teacher is. I have gotten one recommendation, and it was like, here, I've got this kid. And I met with them, and it was like, oh my gosh, there was a lot more. He needed to have a support person there. I have one teacher that gets the parents involved and has really tried to set up the transition team, not only with Voc Rehab, but then also getting the case management at least notified of a possibility of a student with developmental disabilities graduating from high school. At this point, it's all over the board. I can't say that there is a definite model of how it works with students with developmental disabilities transitioning out of high school. We're working on it, and that was one thing when RSA came in. They did an interview with us to see what could be done on a federal level to help this transition be more smooth for students with all disabilities.
So Jeannie, was the video, what was the intent behind creating the video, and how do you hope that it will be used?
Barb Schiedermeyer was the driving force behind doing the video, and she was really hoping to show students that there's other options out there after high school. All too often, with being in the rural community, students with disabilities are thinking, well, okay, I'm done with school, there's nothing I can do. And the video is designed to show them that there are other options. There is training options. There are options for employment, that they're not going to be, stuck at home, so to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions from any of the audience members? Or from Ellen, if you have other questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a question for Jeannie. Can you explain to us what it means if somebody with ongoing support needs is, during their assessment, is found to be in need of ongoing supports and is then referred to extended employment? Can you explain what that means?
With extended employment, it is also going through some changes at this point in time, too. When a person is identified as needing extended employment or ongoing supports in order to maintain a job, depending on what the level of supports needed, there are they can be referred to a crew position, which we have here in Missoula, or it can be community-based employment. What we're finding, especially in Missoula with the crew positions, is once you're placed on that referral list, it may take several years before your name comes up to the top of the list, and then you make application to Voc Rehab again, and then you are placed on a crew. With the community-based employment, fortunately, our waiting list has not been as long, and what happens with the community-based, then again, is your name is placed on the referral list. When it comes to the top, you make application. A job developer has already agreed to provide the ongoing supports. So then job search is conducted trying to find a job that works within the person's strengths, limitations, interests, and capabilities. Once adequate employment is found, then the job developer will provide ongoing supports, generally about every 2 weeks, to check on that person and make sure that the job is still a good match for that individual, as well as a good match for the employer, because they're looking at long-term employment. With any employment goal, it is looked at as trying to place a person into a career rather than just getting them a job for the sake of getting them a job.
Thank you.
Other questions from our audience members? You have a captive VR counselor here. This is your chance.
And if I don't know the answers, I will find out and get them to you.
while we're giving folks another minute to type in, Jeanne, sometimes what I've heard is that young people who have psychiatric disabilities or mental health related challenges don't feel like they qualify for voc rehab services, or perhaps there is too much stigma because it would mean admitting that they have a disability. Can you talk a little bit about people with mental health related disabilities and how VR can serve them?
A lot of times with our individuals that have mental health issues, we work in conjunction here in Missoula with Western Montana Mental Health with our case managers to present a team approach to finding that person employment. I know in the small communities that I go out and travel to, I had an individual say, well, I won't meet with you at the mental health center because then everybody will know that I have a mental health issue. Well, she lives in a town of 200 people. I think everybody probably knows everybody else anyway. So voc rehab really does try to, like in that case, we found a different neutral area, so to speak, to meet in, so she looked like just any other person going to the library. We have to, what I found is by working with the mental health providers that you get a better picture of the person, because finding employment helps to support their non-work hours, and it makes them a more well-rounded person. Chris Clasby, one of the individuals in the video, said it best. He says, with what he does with Montech is help on the recreation side, because it gives somebody something to work towards. If you're just working for the sake of working and you don't have anything that you can do on the recreation side or the personal side, then what are you working towards? And by working with mental health, then we can help individuals work on everything all around. We work on the employment side, and your mental health professionals then are picking up on the rest of it. So by working as a team, then hopefully we are able to provide an all-encompassing program.
Great, thank you. Question has come in from an audience member. What voc rehab services are available in eastern Montana, or should schools look to Billings for services?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know Billings has some counselors that have adopted schools, and they would probably be a good starting point because they would know who has adopted what school, and if they're, and I think Rhonda Shumway out of the Miles City office also works with some schools out there as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Anything else that you wanted to share with the audience, Jeanne?
Not at this time. I do appreciate everybody's time, and if you have any questions about voc rehab and transitions, please do not hesitate to contact your local voc rehab office.
Okay. And with that, just a few closing thoughts. Please remember that when you sign out of today's webinar, a quick survey will pop up, and we really hope that you'll take just a couple of minutes to answer those questions. We read through all of the surveys and use them to hopefully continually improve the webinars that we offer. Today's webinar is the last that we have scheduled for this season. If we are able to get some more webinars going in the future, we will send out the training calendar to our Montana Transition Listserv members, and we will also post it on our website, so be watching for that. As I mentioned at the start of today's session, we have recorded the webinar, and it will be posted to the Transition Projects and to the Pluck Rural Institute online transition toolbox websites, and I put both of those up in the chat window earlier, so hopefully you were able to see those. And I would really like to thank all of you for taking time this afternoon to join us for this webinar, and I'd especially like to thank our presenter, Jeanne Stone, for your time and your willingness. I thought it was a fantastic video, and I really appreciate your willingness to be available for all the questions and answers and to just kind of open it up and let people ask whatever they wanted. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.